Hello there, welcome to another episode of Inside Out Alignment, your platform for self discovery and creativity. Your host, Mary Tapper. Today, we have Allison Sutter with us, who is a spiritual life coach who focuses on helping women hear, trust, and follow their intuition, transform fear and negative beliefs, and be authentically themselves. What can be more beautiful than having people living their life and having confidence and knowing that they are here for something and connecting with their inner essence to live life, the life that they love, and actually being in charge and in control. Allison, I am so grateful to have you here today. Welcome to Inside Out Alignment.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Why intuition?
Well, because it was something I needed to work on, right? I went into a situation where I hired a big name coach. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but there was very much a standardization to the process. He was very much removed and had sort of a script that he went through, even told the same stories over and over again. And as I was in that situation, my anxiety got worse and worse and worse. And to boot, nothing was working. And I'm like, you know what, this doesn't make any sense, because it just didn't make any sense afterwards. I'm like, you know what, there is an answer, there's a solution. And so what I did is as I figured out what I wanted to learn and what was important to me, what happened is I started to have awarenesses come back from when I was young that I was always tapped in, that I always knew. And there were certain experiences that now in hindsight, I could look back and say, oh, that was intuitive guidance. That was sort of a prophetic experience, meaning that I had ideas about who I was and what was to come. Of course, when I was little, I didn't know. They're just dreams. They're just things you think about. So I really thought, you know what, I'm not going to depend on someone else to tell me what to do, but there has to be a way to get guidance, to get accurate, real-time feedback and guidance for me as an individual, because there just has to be. And so that's where I sort of began to just open up and say, well, what do I want to learn about? I want to learn about intuition. I want to learn how to transform fear, because you can't live without it. You just can't. I mean, it's a nice bullet point, live fearlessly, yay, go team. And then all of a sudden the fear comes in. It's like, all right, now what do you do? Right? You got to figure out what it is and how to transform that energy in any topic matter every time it comes up, because it is going to come up. And then the third thing, which goes with intuition, is to be one's authentic self, meaning follow your interests, follow your passions, because I was doing what I thought I should do. I literally did everything I thought I should do and nothing worked. I was miserable, unhappy, wasn't getting the kinds of results that I was promised, and blah, blah, blah. But over time, what I've realized in working with people is these three things are absolutely magical in their ability. When you can do just those three things, you're always on the right path, and you always know you're on the right path. So it's super cool.
So what would you say to somebody who is out there and listening and be like, intuition, or how do I even distinguish that? Or how do I get connected and be sure that this message, or, this path that I'm taking is the right path, or it's really what I would love to do? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, two things. First is, what is your definition of intuition? Like how we define things is super important, because it's how they're showing up. So if somebody says, I don't believe I'm intuitive, well, there's your definition right there. Your definition is not for me. It's something I don't have. I did a summit back in February, and I brought 18 women in, and they all talked about intuition. When I polled the attendees, they said things like, I don't trust my intuition. I'm not intuition. I don't know when it's coming through. So to that point, I'd say you need to begin to shift your understanding of what intuition is. You are actually 100% intuitive. Every single human who is birthed into this reality is 100% intuitive. There isn't disconnection. There's the experience of disconnection, because we have free will. We can do whatever we want with this, right? It's our narrative. So the first thing is to begin to start understanding that you have 100% of the flow coming to you right now. It's your resistance and your definitions that cut off the perception of it. For example, if you think intuition is something that only comes through in miraculous situations when someone's in a burning car and they have to jump out, well, then you're not going to see it when a flyer shows up at your door for the college you're supposed to send your kid to, which is exactly what happened to me. The flyer showed up. I've been throwing them in the garbage for child number 2 for like since they started showing up freshman year, the senior now. And I got this one flyer and I'm like, this is it. We need to go to this college. We went there. It's the perfect college. So, your definitions, you have to begin to play with. I was like, what is my definition? It's get out a piece of paper, start paying attention. Is it something I think is only available to my neighbor or a psychic? Or is it something I feel I can actually tap into? It's actually very logical, very rational, and it's 100% there. 100%. It's just, what have you cut off?
Wow. And okay, talking about it the way you just explained, and maybe honing into having that better living. So how do you like incorporate that, with the decisions that you make, maybe on a daily basis? It might be maybe your health and well-being, it might be in your relationship, in your vocation and all that, in order to be able to really distinguish that and have it as part of you and know that is that guide to that direction that you're going.
You have to become sensitive to it because it's coming through you in the ways that you allow it to come through. For example, maybe a gut feeling, might be goosies. In the beginning, you only have it in rare circumstances because you don't believe. And what you believe has a massive impact on how you create your reality. So if you don't believe you're intuitive, you're not going to catch it when it's coming through. It's not going to happen. So you have to begin to play with, how is it coming through for me? And in the beginning, it was subtle, but only because I had resistance to it. Mm-hmm. That's where subtlety comes from. It comes from disbelief, right? It's coming full force through, but my disbelief is causing what we call subtlety. So it was very subtle. And it was an inkling, a sensation, an idea that felt a certain way. And over time, as I put my trust in it, saw my trust validated in my experience, had my awareness. Intuition has a lot to do with awareness, whether you're aware of something or not. So over time, what I did is I got used to the ways in which it's coming. For me, it comes through in the clairs, like clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, as well as a general sense of knowing that I can just feel it. It's very subtle, but I can feel it. Like when I picked up that flyer, I'm like, okay, this is where we need to go, because it sort of radiates throughout my whole body as a sense of certainty, of a possibility to what we need an answer to. So you have to become conditioned to the ways in which it's coming through for you. If you're somebody who's like, I don't believe in clairsentience, well, guess what? It's not going to come through as a clairsentience. It's going to be an idea that you go, oh my God, that's such a great idea. Because you're used to aha moments, and you believe in the receptivity of good ideas. So whatever you believe to be true is the way it's going to come through. So get used to it. Grow your awareness of how it's coming through for you. It's not going to be the same way it's coming through for your best friend, because you have a different belief system. You have different ways of integrating that information. And then over time, you start trusting it. But don't go bet all your money, on the stock market. If you have no intuitive knowledge or connection with the stock market, don't do stuff like that. That's just ridiculous. Start small with little things that don't mean anything to you. Pick a restaurant. Which one, do you want to go to? Pick a direction that you want to go to, left or right. Pick an outfit. Go to the grocery store and hold an apple and an orange. Which one serves me better today? And get used to the slight, utter differentiation. My kids say to me, like when they're doing homework and they hate everything. Well, I say, pick the one that feels a little less yucky, right? There's a difference between whether you hate math or science more. Right? There's just a little bit of difference. So figure out what that little bit of difference is. That's what intuition is. It's decoding the subtle differentiation. Once you feel a little more confident, you can start going into the realm of bigger, quote unquote, bigger, because it's all relative, right? Mm-hmm. What is big to you is not big to me.
Right.
Whatever feels bigger or is more consequential, you can move towards those things as you build your own relationship with the way it's coming through for you. So don't go look at some psychic and go, I can't do that. Well, of course not. You're not that psychic. Like you have to be in relationship with the way it comes through for you, because that's the deal. It's like I used to look at people and go, I can't do that. Well, I'm not supposed to do that. That's the irony. I'm not supposed to do it like they're supposed to do it. I'm supposed to do it like I'm doing it. So every listener is supposed to do it exactly in the incredibly individualized way that they are doing it. We are not here to replicate someone else's experience.
Mm-hmm.
So intuition to me is my conversation with what I call my higher self. Now I have a specific definition of what that is. So I have a relationship with it and I have a trust with it. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, the conversation, I allowed it to become its own personality. And now I know when it's talking to me, and it talks to me because it is me.
Yeah, beautifully said. And that is why it's often said the voice of truth is only as loud as our willingness to listen to it. So we have to be willing, just as you said, believing in it for us to be able to even identify and, that voice.
Yes.
I love that. And so when was your turning point?
Well, probably that situation I had with that particular coach. Because I was just so utterly anxious. I'm like, I can't keep living with this sense of, and I think the anxiety arose to tell me, don't follow other people's, they cannot tell you what is right for you. They cannot. I don't care how famous they are or how much success they have. They cannot tell you what is right for you, but you can discern what is the next best step for you in any given moment. So as I began to say, you know what, screw it. No one else can tell me what I need to do. Because personal development has taken on this really authoritarian kind of process. They're like, you need to set bigger goals and you need to meditate and you need to, it's like, how do you know what I need to do? I know what I need to do because I know what my limitations are. I know what my limiting beliefs are. I know what I have resistance to. So only I know what is the next best step for me. So probably that where I was like, you know what? And then what happened as I followed my own inklings and hunches and interests, because intuition will come through in the path of least resistance. So if if you like the term interest, it will come through as an interest. Read this book, don't read that one. Go, look at this Netflix show and have an aha moment versus that one. So as I started to do that, all of the ways in which I was psychically connected as a child came back through. I was like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. I remember, it all started coming back. And it gave me lots of cool ideas, like how to organize my book, how to say this stuff, to be confident to say it in a very simplistic manner, like I do. I used to teach kindergarten. There's no need to complicate things. There's no need to present yourself in a way that says my language is esoteric and better than yours. Like, you know what? This is the way that I say it. I say it so people can understand it. And I also invite them in through their own experience to understand it through their lens, because you can't understand it through mine, but you can through your own. So how do I get, anyway, so that's where it was probably, that was the biggest turning point where I then said, you know what, I just need to figure this out. I need to figure it out.
Wow. Yeah, you also talked about setting goals is one of the things that you really do not consider as far as you are concerned, working on your projects or moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share a little bit to us about your take on goals, setting goals?
Yeah. So everything is individualized. For some other person listening, they may be like, I don't understand. I set goals and I reach them. Awesome. It's your relationship with your meaning of that word. I didn't happen to encounter that word until I worked with this particular coach. So it was really tainted. It was traumatizing for me to have to be in relationship with that word. Also, there's a lot of that around the standardized education system, because I taught in public school for a long time. Taught in Chicago, actually, for a little while. But in relationship to that word, there's very little individualization. They're just like set a goal as if without being aware of what that means to that person. So for me, there was a lot of negativity around that word. So I'm like, I need to find a different word. And so what I have discovered that works for me personally is to remove the words that either don't have a meaning or have some level of resistance to them, or some negative experience. So I just have projects. I just have things I'm working on. When I get ideas, I follow them, and it works for me. Like we published, when my daughter was 12 and 14, we published 2 books of hers, right? So that's quote unquote success. That's tangible goods. I've published two books, 2 self-help books. I've published 2 children's books. I, constantly produce, right? Because there's a level of success that people equate with production.
Mhm.
So I like to explore ideas because to me, I don't like when I had to set a goal, everyone was like, set a time frame on it. Like you have to put a time frame or you won't do it. Well, what happened is it caused me so much anxiety to put a time frame on it that it shut me down and I could not follow my ideas. So if I take a time frame off of it, I actually go quote unquote faster, right? Because there's no point at which I lose. There's only win, 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 win. So I just take projects and go with them.
Wow, that is beautiful. I think you're the first person that I really hear talking about goals that way and in it beautifully, in a beautiful way and actually honing into what works for you, which is really
Well,
inspiring.
here's another idea about that. So what people don't understand is there's a threshold of believability within each person in relation to an idea. So if you got a coach and the coach is going, set a goal, make sure it's big and put it in 6 months. So you're like, oh my God, I gotta set a goal. I gotta make it big. So you're freaking out already. And what you
Overwhelmed.
don't understand, you're overwhelmed because you don't know how it's going to happen. First of all, it's probably not even, you're just trying to set something to appear like you're setting a big goal. It may not have been organically what you would have done naturally had you just followed ideas that were fun. But when you do something like that, there is a spectrum of emotional resonance. And you can find the place where you go from disbelief to belief. Like there's a place, if you said, you know what, let's say you have a time frame on it. You're like, can I do it in a year? You're like, oh my God, I don't know, maybe, clearly you're in disbelief. Could I do it in 3 years? I don't know, maybe. Could I do it in 5 years? Probably, yeah. So you can see how you're coming back into your threshold of believability, right? This area where you think it's possible. The reason why that's important, and the thing that nobody ever told me, is that your inner vibration and your inner resonance is your allowing or disallowing. And your reality is created, the tangible aspects of it are created based on your ability to receive or your resistance to it. It isn't just about setting a goal. It's about your vibrational awareness of where you go from I believe it to disbelieving. If you go from believing to disbelieving, guess what? It's going to take a really long time. You're probably not going to reach that goal because you're the one creating the influx of ideas, the opportunities to cross paths synchronistically with the right person. That is all determined by your level of resistance or allowance. Nobody ever said that to me. They're just like, set a goal. Oh my God, whatever.
Love that. So when you talk about negative beliefs like fear, and all that, the things that hold us back from moving forward, and how do you or even somebody who is setting goals actually and not being able to reach them, and even when they do not set a goal, they're still unable to reach, it's like, oh, there is nothing to look forward to, and they're not intuitive and things like that. So which category, or if you have somebody like that, what would you say to them? How would you help them, get out of that space of, because it's really imbalanced?
So that's one of the reasons why I take people over the space of a year. We meet together for 15 times over the course of the year. And precisely why we do this is because it simply takes time for you to recognize that something is a limiting belief for yourself, because they're sneaky little buggers, and to intersect with your reality in an experience where you go, oh, I can see, all right, I see it now, right? It just takes time. You have to have that intersection happen. So it's not going to happen in 30 days. I'm sorry, it just doesn't happen that way. We just don't work that way as human beings. You're not going to bust open and all your limiting beliefs in 30 days. It doesn't work that way. So what I do with people is we just start slowly by first understanding what beliefs are, and also to begin to digest the concept that negative beliefs, as we put a value judgment on them, we say negative is bad. That's our value judgment. From the perspective, and remember, my work is all spiritually based, but from the perspective of non-physical self or source, negative is a deconstructive energetic mechanism. It's a structure of disintegrating things. For example, we could not have this physical experience if we did not disintegrate from the wholeness of our consciousness, because we're pretty large as in terms we're all that is as far as consciousness is concerned. But we put parameters, we put what can be considered a negative structure on our consciousness. That way we can focus into this human situation and have an experience of being human. Otherwise, we would be too broad and expansive as a consciousness. We couldn't have this limited perspective. So negative as a structure of energy is actually disintegrative. It's not a value judgment from the source perspective of us. We put the value judgment of bad. So you have to begin to understand what beliefs are, right? And then over time, little by little, each experience you have, you can see the ways in which, so beliefs are a lot like, the Play-Doh machines you have in kindergarten where you shove it in the top and you have like a star on the end and you crank it and it comes out in the shape of a star. That's exactly what we're doing. Energy is coming through a filter and it's coming out in the form of a shape. But we're so used to the shape it comes out in, we don't even recognize the shape of it sometimes. So you need to begin to recognize the shape of it, and you need to begin to recognize how it's a limitation that you've put on yourself, such as I'm not worthy, I can't do this, I don't have the resources, I don't know enough, that kind of stuff. You've got to begin to put a different shape filter on the end, right? And that simply takes time. We live in a time, space, reality. We wake up, we go through our day, we go to sleep, we do it again, we do it again, we do it again. And the awareness comes in gradations. It comes in small micro movements, because otherwise we go into psychic shock. If you shifted every single belief you had in one day, you'd literally go into psychic shock. Your reality would not look like what you know it to be. So you have to take your time with this stuff. You have to realize what limitations you've been putting on your own consciousness, on your own ability. And the fact that it's hard to change a negative belief is in and of itself a negative belief. Voila, there it is.
Thanks for that. And okay, I know you lost your mom, in an early age, in your 20s. She rests easy. And you actually realized that you could still feel her in a different energetic way. And it also was one of the moments or the times that you transform, or you started learning about all this spirituality and all that. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
So I'm 20 years old. Imagine Road was like, you're 20. You don't care about this stuff. I did not care about personal development. I didn't even know about personal development. we didn't talk about spirituality, none of that. So my mom had pancreatic cancer. It was 6 weeks. It was like, boom, quick. And then on her transition bed, her deathbed, she goes from breathing to not breathing. And so I'll try to explain how much I recognized in that split second. But what I realized is that when she transitioned, of course, this was an agreement between her and I. This was a place that we met in the psychic realm, in the non-physical realm, to have this communication. But what I recognized in that moment is all the resistance that we have. So my mom had ankylosing spondylitis. She had rheumatoid arthritis. She was, my parents had divorced. She was jealous and angry at my dad. There was a lot. I mean, I grew up with a sister who was psychotic. Like it was tumultuous. So there was a lot of anger and resentment and fear and all of that. The moment she transitioned from physically focused to non-physically focused, I had an awareness that we don't take that stuff with us. What we become is the resonance of what we call unconditional love, which is the resonance of the universe. We translate the resonance of the universe, the frequency of the universe, as love. That's a name we put on it so that we can understand it. She became more equated with that vibration. And I knew it. I'm like, I don't have the words for it. I can't even explain it to anyone. I just know that when you're physically focused, there's limitation and resistance. It's part of this reality. And then when you focus out of it, it's different. And well, I think what was so interesting about her is because she had so much anger and so much resentment. There was more like a pop. It was more like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Oh, I'm dead. It was sort of like, I felt the pop of energy. And so did my brother and my sister-in-law, ironically, who we talked about afterwards. What's interesting is my dad passed in March. Very different transition. There wasn't a pop of energy because he lived to 83. He had made the decision to pass. He had 2 forms of cancer. He made the decision to pass. He was surrounded for a week by family. He was comfortable. He was loved. There wasn't this, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. He made the decision. He said, it's time for me to go. And then he left. So there wasn't this pop of energy. But I knew with my mom, back when I didn't know anything about anything, that that's what happens when we transition. And then I remembered things like when I was 3, I had a dream. And of course, this was just my world when you're little. I remember, and I call it a dream, but I don't know if it's a dream or a remembrance of part of my essence. But I was on this stage and I'm this light being literally made of light. And the more I focus on love, the more this concept of physical body melts away. And I just become this energy of light. And then out before me are this sea of other people who are just doing the same thing. So I had remembered, and I had that dream for years. Again, I call it a dream, but I don't know what it was. So as I moved farther into honor who I was and what I'm here to do, more of these awarenesses came back, these ideas of what we really are. We are all consciousness. We all are made of love and light. Whether somebody honors that aspect of them is completely okay. Whether they don't, it doesn't, none of that matters because each person is here to have their own adventure. Mm-hmm. However, when you tap into your intuition and you trust it, you're tapping into that aspect of you that knows everything. We're all still, we haven't disconnected. That's a fallacy. That we haven't disconnected. That's false. We are still connected. We're just in denial of that connection, which is what I realized when my mom transitioned. It's like, it was an immediate letting go of all that stuff and a resonance with what we really are. So.
Beautiful. Wow. Now talking about, I know after your mom transition, you went through that, and then now you are in this space, you're empowering women, you're impacting their life, you are helping people be in that space where they are living their authentic life, they are more fulfilled. And when that happens, I know we get in that space where we are transformed, and others around us, they see the transformation, and that can, it can form a chain like easily, for others to also transform because they see that greatness, they see us being authentic and living life, in a more fulfilled manner. Yes. So at this point, what is your next big goal? Oh, now I tell you. Like when as you're working, going towards the future, what are the things that you are planning or you are now focusing on, to get your work move forward in that space of empowerment and impacting more lives of women? Or
I'm thinking about it, right?
Of maybe not just in Chicago, like, the world at large.
Well, interestingly enough, so ironically, I think the biggest impact we can make on other people is to be in alignment ourselves. So whether someone accepts and resonates with that impact that I make, impact meaning I'm going to be me. Sure. And if me being me allows you to be you, bravo. Then we've made quote unquote impact, right? Well, clearly the internet, I do tons of interviews. I talk to people all over the world. I've got a client Fiji. I want people who resonate with what and want to use me as a permission slip, because I don't change anyone. What I do is I give them knowledge and information, and I myself stand in a place of alignment. And if they use me as a permission slip, great, right? Like perfect. But I'm going to continue to follow. I have no idea, aside from I'm going to write a book that I've been playing with called The Halfways, because I again had this awareness. It came to me at night. I was like awake, but not awake. And it wasn't a dream. I was something. I was a consciousness, and I was teaching people who are going to become incarnate how to understand their emotional guidance system. And then I woke up, I'm like, okay, that's what I'm doing anyway. So what the book is going to do is invite those who want to understand how the wholeness of us is the physical and non-physical perspective. If you're just taking the physical, you're missing half the boat. If you're just taking the non-physical spirit, if you're like uber spiritual, you're missing half the boat, dude. Like, we are both of these perspectives. And when you learn to utilize them, so it's going to be called The Halfways, because we're halfway between these two worlds, every single one of us. And so for those people who want to integrate their intuition, to learn to transform fear, to be their authentic self, I'm going to write that book. And then, I don't know, I've got a fiction book in my head. I don't know. I know that I'm going to continue to create things. Right now, I'm posting a ton on Instagram. I just feel inspired to post these little blurbs on Instagram. And then, of course, like I as a coach, as a mentor, am very much, I don't know, slow cooker is the best word, I guess, because I like to work, like, again, with people long-term and to really get to know them, because I am here in this perspective for the person. Right. I honestly don't give a shit about the money. Like, I am here for the people, and I want this relationship. I want to miss my students when they're gone. And I do. Like, I want to be with people in a longer term relationship. I don't want 30 days, you're done, next. Like, it's just not me. So I honor who I am, and I have a couple of people at a time, and I just work with them. I love on them. And because I know that long-term change, my goal is when we're done to have such a stable base, you don't need me or anyone else. I'm not trying to upsell people to the next best thing. Like, when you're done, you got a really stable base, and you don't feel this need to need an expert, which is baloney.
Right. What advice would you give to your 21-year-old self?
Interesting, because that's a different person. Like, I don't think she would hear me. If she is who she is, she's not going to hear me. So there's nothing I can tell her that she's going to hear, because you have to read part of my book. My sister was a nightmare growing up. I was just angst ridden. I had suicidal ideations. It was just a really tough time. And all I needed at that point was someone just to hug me. Just unconditionally love me, not expect anything from me, not go to college, produce something. Like, I just needed to be held. So I would probably just hold her, but not with an expectation.
Wow, just love her. Beautiful. Yeah. Where can the audience find you?
You can go to Instagram. Right now I'm there. You can, sometimes I do rooms on Clubhouse. So it's just my name, at Allison Sutter, and then Instagram's at Allison Sutter 3. I have a website, but I don't really pay attention to it. It's just a holding ground for, you can find my classes there. You can reach me there. Just search my name and Google it. I come up. Like, if you really want to get a hold of me, you'll get a hold of me.
You will. Definitely.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Allison. It's been a wonderful time with you and really sharing from your heart. I just love your wisdom. I love the work you do and the difference you're making in our blue planet. And I really just want to say thank you. Do you have any other words that you want to share with your audience today?
Yeah, follow your bliss, man. Follow your bliss.
Thank you. So on the description box of this episode, I will have Allison's information on there, and you can contact her, if you have any questions, you need clarity, or you want to read her book or anything else. Don't hesitate to actually to reach out. That's why she's here. That's why she chose to do the work she's doing. And until then, make sure you listen to this episode and take all the gold nuggets that she shared with us today. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thanks again, Allison. And let's all of us have a wonderful and great day. Bye bye for now.